One of the key players in all of that was the chairman at the time of the state Republican Party, Reince Priebus. Reince is one of those guys who gets it. Unlike a lot of other states where you had a division between the party and the Tea Party, between the conservatives and the pragmatists, Reince Priebus, for however he did it, was able to bring everyone together. So that in Wisconsin, we had candidates across the state: Paul Ryan, Reed Ribble, Sean Duffy, Ron Johnson, Scott Walker, who all ran on solid conservative principles and won across the board. And Reince Priebus is one of the key guys who made that happen. Many of you do not know that Reince almost did not go into politics. That Reince actually had a moment in his life where he had to decide, am I going to go into politics or am I going to go for the big bucks? And in fact, he was interviewing for a job where in fact he had a chance to do extremely well for himself. And he'd gone through all the process and was told, you need to interview with the boss. Old, elderly, curmudgeonly guy who may think that you're a little bit young, because of course Reince looks like he's about 18 years old. And Reince knew I could go into politics or I'm going to go into this job. This is a great job for me. I really want to do this job. I really want to convince this guy that I can do this job. And Reince is incredibly persuasive, as you all know. And he went in and he met with the CEO. And because Reince has so much confidence, he said, I need to find a way to connect with this guy. And he said, I'm in luck. Because he noticed a picture of the CEO with Ernest Borgnine. And he thought, I know Ernest Borgnine. I was a big McHale's Navy fan. I'm from Wisconsin. I know that Ernest Borgnine was the Grand Marshal of the circus parade. And he said, sir, before we even begin, I want you to know I'm a huge Ernest Borgnine fan, and I'm really impressed that you and Ernest Borgnine are friends. And the CEO said, what do you mean? He said, well, the picture of you and Ernest Borgnine. And he said, Reince, that's my wife and me. Reince Priebus ended up going into politics, and we are all the better for it.
Thank you, Charlie, for that. That's a unique introduction. Usually I introduce as, Reince Priebus or whatever his name is. I appreciate that. I want you all to know, I consider serving as chairman of the Republican National Committee just a total and complete blessing from God. Has given us an opportunity together to take the things that we've learned in Wisconsin, how to bring this conservative movement together, how to run a national Republican Party like we did here in Wisconsin, where we repeatedly, both in our actions and in our attitude, said, look, we are part of the conservative movement. We're not in competition with the conservative movement. And in the case of the Republican National Committee, we can't be part of the conservative movement unless we're functional, operational, we have money flying out of our windows. We have to be able to, when it comes time to put the pieces on the table, we have to be a Republican National Committee that is trusted and has the credibility. And the same thing is true with the Republican Party of Wisconsin. That when it comes time for that Super Bowl to turn back his public employee union, just bosses, I was going to use another word, I'm going to keep it simple, that we need to have an RPW, an RNC that's hitting on all cylinders. Let me tell you something. I think that, and it goes for the RNC and the Republican Party as a whole, sometimes we do a real lousy job of telling people what it is that we do. You know, a lot of people just think, well, the Republican Party is this, this entity out in the clouds, and, it's a good thing. I don't really know exactly what it is. We're the army on the ground. We are the entity that under the law is the only entity in America that can take the money that we raise and we can legally coordinate that money with candidates across the board, go door to door, absentee ballot, directly advocate with that money on top of the money that the other candidates raise, put it together, and get our candidates over the finish line. We're the only ones in the country that can do that. You have here in this room, now look around us. This is the Milwaukee County Republican Party. This is the biggest crowd that I've ever seen at a Milwaukee County Republican Party dinner. They're getting bigger and bigger and bigger every year. You have a leader here, David Kars, that has turned this party around over the years, and you have so much to be proud of. And I am very thankful to you, David, for the work that you're doing here in Milwaukee County. Thank you. And of course, I've got to tell you about my buddy and my friend, and someone I kind of look up to as an older brother, and that's Brad Courtney. Now, we talk a lot about servant leadership in the party and what that means to step into the breach and keep everything together the way that Brad has in a very difficult time. Not because not for any other reason other than there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of money to raise. There's a lot of communicating to do on television, radio, and keeping the grassroots together, keeping the Tea Party, the conservative movement, the Republican Party, everything on the rails. And you are blessed to have Brad Courtney as your chairman. He's one of the best chairmen in the entire country. So thank you, Brad. Now, I happen to believe, like Paul, that this election is about the big things. It's not about the little things. It's not about contracts with Fannie. It's not about former spouses' stories about their husbands. This is about the big things. This election is about liberty, freedom, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, religious freedom. As we go around the country, not every state in America has Republicans like you all have here in Wisconsin. You have Ron Johnson, Paul Ryan, Jim, Sean, Reed, and you have a governor that is not just leading the debate in this country and in this state. He's leading the debate even around the world over what kind of country, over what type of society we want to have in America. Do we want to be a nation of makers? Or do you want to be a nation of takers? Do we want to have more people riding the wagon or driving the wagon? And like Paul said, do you want a cradle-to-grave society, or do you want a society that was founded upon the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights that embraces the American unique desire that's in our hearts, that's born in us, to strive for individual and economic freedom? How many people here think it's time that we fire Barack Obama and save America? Yeah. I happen to believe that we're in a battle for freedom in this country. This is a battle for freedom. It's the same battle that founded this country. It's the same battle that James Madison reaffirmed in the Bill of Rights. It's the same battle that founded our party in 1854 in Ripon, Wisconsin. And here we are today. We are in a battle for freedom. And it's a battle between government's insatiable appetite to grow and what's in our heart, which is economic and individual freedom as protected by the Constitution. Now, you all know this. I've got a bizarre name. And I don't know how much I've ever talked about my name to you all, but for those in Kenosha, I have. My name is what happens when a Greek and a German get married. Okay? It's a clash of cultures. I know we got a lot of Germans here tonight, but, you know, I'm a normal guy, as you all know. But people around the country, Reince Priebus, what in the world? My kids' names, as a reaction to my name, my kids' names are Jack and Grace. You see how simple I got this? Someone I don't know if I've told you this story before. I may have said it at some other event, but I was at a fundraiser in Orlando, Florida. And I had a lapel sticker on, like you all have here. And someone pulled it off of my lapel. And they said, well, look at this. If you take the vowels out of the name Reince Priebus, think about this for a second. You get RNC for the first name. It gets better. It gets better. And the last name you get PRBS. So I know that God has a sense of humor, but there's a reason for this story. I told you that half of my family, my mother's side, lives in Greece. And I just want to tell you a little story. When I grew up, my grandfather, and in Greek, any Greeks out here other than Liam? All right. My grandfather, in Greek, grandfather, you say papu. And so my papu was someone that is a little guy. And I know a lot of grandpas are out there. You can have a profound impact on those little guys. I looked up to him, and I loved him more than anything in the entire world. I remember going out to Greece and visiting him many times. And he loved politics and anything about politics. And in Greece, there's the New Democracy Party, there's the PASOK, which are the socialists, and then there's the KKE, which are the communists. So you can figure out who the good guys are, right? Well, I remember going to Athens, walking out on the balcony, and seeing on the balcony a huge flag that said New Democracy. And then next to that flag was another huge flag of the United States of America in downtown Athens. Now, my yaya and papu would come back to Kenosha, where I grew up. And, you know, Americans, we go there for a long weekend and a week, and we come back a couple months for yaya and papu in Kenosha. So, we really got to know them. And so my papu, for whatever reason, and you all remember these, he loved reading the world books. You remember the world books? Well, he'd read the world books all day. And I would sit there and just watch my papu read these books. Now, he a lot of times had a Johnny Walker or Dewar's White Label next to him when he'd read the world books. I don't know if he'd like having an excuse to drink or read the world books again. But he would take off the letter P off the shelf for presidents. And he would read me stories about all the presidents. Now, I remember, as a little guy, sitting there for hours on end. And it didn't matter. This is the odd part about it. It really didn't matter who it was. It could be a Whig, Democrat, Republican, all kinds of stories. You get to Dwight Eisenhower, and he was great. And LBJ, wonderful. And then you get to Ronald Reagan, he was. Here's what I take from this. Growing up, listening to my papu tell stories like this. He loved this country. And it didn't matter what it was about this country, but he loved this country. And I got to tell you, this election today, this election here with Scott Walker, and then later in November with this president that we have, this election is not about the future of the Republican Party. It's not about the Democratic Party for sure. This election is about the future of the greatest country on the face of the earth that everyone around the world strives to be. But today, that America is being threatened. You and I both know that as a matter of principle, a government that loses its sovereignty to its bondholders can't guarantee prosperity or freedom to anybody. And a government that buries its kids and its grandkids in an avalanche of debt can't rest in any vestige of the moral high ground. And certainly, an economy controlled by China can't compete with China. You know, sometimes we forget history, even those of us that think about it all the time, that this country was founded on the basis of freedom and liberty. And that's what's at stake in this election. That's what we're fighting for. And that's why we have to halt Barack Obama's march to the left. His priorities are not America's priorities. And Barack Obama, he's not your daddy's Democrat. Right? He's not John F. Kennedy. He's not even Clinton. He is the first unapologetic, leftist, European, liberal to ever have lived at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and we're going to make him the last. And we have to make him the last because this is a president who would rather bow to Chinese leaders than stand up for America's greatness. He's a president who would rather trash the Constitution than preserve our rights. He's a president that would rather defer to the United Nations than defend the United States. And he's a president that would allow a Democratic National Committee chairwoman to use a Tucson shooting tragedy to trash the Tea Party movement in this country. We serve in this party the principles of Washington, the principles of Lincoln and Reagan. Obama serves the demands of union bosses, central planners, and elitist bureaucrats. We believe in the founding philosophy of our fathers. He believes in only one man's philosophy, the philosophy of Barack Obama. Just remember, every liberal pipe dream this president has pursued, just as Paul has said, he pursued it knowing that he'd have to face re-election. Just imagine what he would do if he didn't have that face in him. I believe it'd be nothing short than making the United States a full member of the European Union. He hasn't moved to the center like most of the pundits thought he would do after the 2010 election. He's moved further to the left. And last week, he decided that freedom of religion doesn't apply to religious organizations. He sacrificed the First Amendment for big government because for him, Obamacare is more sacred than the Bill of Rights. In America, we've had presidents who have studied law, we've had presidents who have practiced law, and we've had presidents who have taught law. But we never had a president who thought he was above the law, like we have now. We've never had a president who would trade the American dream for the European nightmare. If we lose this election, we lose America. And the dreams of Obama will replace the vision of our founders. It's time to end the Barack Obama presidency before his presidency ends our way of life. Do you agree with me? My pledge to you is simple. That as RNC chairman, and working with your state party and your great chairman, Brad Courtney, we're going to keep our head down. We're going to raise money. We're going to be operational. We're going to be part of the conservative movement, not in competition with the conservative movement. We're going to help you get over the finish line and make sure that not only we take care of Scott Walker, but we make sure that we make this state a red state in November. There's one fight, though, that I want to make sure that I just talk about for 1 second before I step off the podium. And that's what you've got going on right here in Wisconsin. When Governor Walker stepped into office, he saved the teachers from layoffs. He balanced the budget. He empowered local districts and municipalities. And he ended the days of pay-for-play politics. Wisconsin is better off. Communities are better off. Taxes are lower. The business climate is better. But they're now pulling out every trick in the book to make sure that they derail this success story that you've all made happen here in Wisconsin. Because after all, hornets are always the angriest when you destroy their nests. When I was chairman of the party, you all got tired of me saying this, but I became convinced in our party, and I think why we have such leaders in this state that you're all so proud of, is that what this party needed was pretty simple. We just needed people of their word to run for office. We needed to win, and then we needed those people of their word to govern like they campaign. And sometimes you got to do a whole lot of number 3, governing like you campaign, before you can prove number 1, that you're a person of your word. Scott's being attacked not because of something he failed to do, but because of something he promised to do, and for something that he was elected to do by the people of this great state. I think, and I believe, as all of you, that we've all been blessed in different ways, right? Every one of us in this room has been blessed in a different way. And we may not agree on every little thing all the time about every little issue. But I can tell you that we have to run a party that operates on the concepts of addition and multiplication, not division and subtraction. Because if this is not just words, I mean, all these speeches about America at stake, and I believe it in my heart, if that's not just words, then we have to do everything in our power to make sure that we save Scott Walker and that we fire Barack Obama, and in the process, we'll save this great country. So thank you, and God bless you. We appreciate you.